Hi, and welcome to Drupal Brief. This is an AI-generated brief of another video, podcast, or blog post. If you want to learn more about what's being discussed here, then please go check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at Drupal Forge. We would love to create more AI-generated briefs like this. Please contact Salim Lakhani on Drupal Slack or LinkedIn and let him know what else you want us to cover. Oh, and if you have not tried Drupal Forge yet, you're missing out. You'll be able to do twice as much in half the time. So go check it out. Okay, that's it. Make sure to click subscribe. And here we go.
Ever wished you could just hit undo on a big website update?
Or, test out a new design without worrying about breaking the live site.
Like, what if you had a secret clone of your Drupal site to experiment on?
Well, good news. Drupal has a feature for that.
Really?
It's called Workspaces.
Workspaces, okay. So is that what we're diving into today?
You got it. We're going to get you up to speed on this awesome feature.
Awesome. And what are we looking at?
We've got a Talking Drupal episode all about Workspaces.
Nice.
And some details on a module called Workspaces Extra.
Okay, so will Workspaces actually be like my Drupal safety net?
Think of it more like a parallel universe for your content.
A parallel universe.
You can try out different content, see how new pages look in the site, even stage a whole site revamp.
And all without touching the live site.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do these parallel universes actually work?
It's pretty straightforward, actually.
Really?
You create separate workspaces in Drupal. Each one's like a container for content changes. You edit inside a workspace, and the changes are, revisioned.
Like regular Drupal edits.
Exactly. But here's the magic.
What's that?
None of it goes live until you publish the whole workspace.
So it's like having a staging environment.
Yeah, but just for content.
Perfect for like big content pushes then, right?
You got it. Like launching a campaign or redesigning a whole section of your site.
Everything's ready to go all at once.
One click and boom.
No more late night stress.
Exactly.
But there's got to be a catch, right?
Well, there are some things to keep in mind.
Like what?
Workspaces are mostly for content.
Not site configuration.
Right. You can see the settings in a workspace. But if you change them, it affects the live site right away.
Okay, so it's like
a studio apartment, great for content, but you can't renovate.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about actually editing content in a workspace? Anything weird there?
You can only edit a piece of content in one workspace at a time. So if you're working on a page in staging, you can't also have it open for edits on the live site.
Won't that get confusing? Especially if you've got a team working on things.
It's to prevent conflicts and keep the editing history clean.
Okay, so how do I think about that?
Like checking a book out from the library.
Only one person can have it at once.
Exactly. And then they return it with their changes.
Or in this case, publish the workspace.
Yeah.
So workspaces are like my digital library for content.
Pretty much.
And when you publish, all those changes are like merged back in.
Neatly integrated, yeah.
That's cool. So for little everyday edits, should I use workspaces for those too?
Probably not.
Really?
For quick edits, just use Drupal's regular revision system.
Workspaces are more for big changes then?
Yeah, or when you need a controlled environment.
Control.
Like for collaboration or previewing things.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right tool for the job.
Exactly.
So workspaces are powerful, but
not for everything.
Got it. So if I'm ready to start using workspaces, what should I watch out for?
Permissions can be a bit tricky.
In what way?
You have separate permissions for like owning a workspace,
okay,
editing, viewing. So you need to think about who needs what.
And what about, well, earlier you said something about workspaces and
workflows.
Yes. Can we get into that?
We can, but it gets complicated.
Oh, no.
The main thing is every piece of content in a workspace, it has to be at the final stage of its workflow before you can publish the workspace.
Oh, so even one page stuck in review holds up the whole thing.
Yep. So workspaces and workflows together.
Yep.
Really best for specific situations.
Not everyday stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, for someone like me who likes to learn by doing.
Jump right in. Install the module.
Okay.
Create a few test workspaces and just play around.
See how it works.
Exactly.
Now, what about things that might surprise people who already know Drupal?
One thing is when you make new content in a workspace, an unpublished version shows up on your live site too.
Wait, why?
It's a technical thing to avoid like ID conflicts.
Okay.
Drupal needs a placeholder on the live site.
I see.
So everything lines up right when you publish.
So it's more of a behind-the-scenes thing.
Exactly.
Good to know. Okay, so we've covered how workspaces work, the quirks
Mm-hmm.
and when to use them.
Yeah.
But what about those Workspaces Extra features you mentioned?
Oh, yeah. Workspaces Extra adds some really useful stuff.
Like what?
For example, you can roll back changes after publishing.
Ooh, that's handy.
If you spot a mistake, you can just revert to an older version.
I've definitely had those moments.
Workspaces Extra also lets you move content between workspaces.
How would that be useful?
It's great for things like managing translations.
Oh,
Or creating different versions of content for different people.
I like it. What else can this magical module do?
It lets you make preview links,
Preview links.
so you can share a workspace with, say, a client, without giving them access to your whole Drupal backend.
That's smart.
And it even has a built-in publication scheduler.
Ooh, so I don't have to stay up late to publish things anymore.
Exactly.
I am sold.
Well,
So Workspaces Extra is basically a must-have then.
it definitely makes things easier.
Are there any downsides to using it, though?
One of the submodules, it's called Workspaces Extra Config.
Okay.
It lets you make configuration changes inside a workspace.
Sounds convenient.
It is, but those changes still affect the live site right away.
So be careful.
Yeah, you don't want to make any accidental changes.
Makes sense. Now, we talked about workspaces and workflows before,
Right.
but I'm still a bit confused. Can we unpack that a bit more?
Sure. The main thing to remember is that everything in a workspace, it needs to be at the final stage of its workflow
Okay.
before you can publish the whole workspace.
So if one page is stuck in review, the whole workspace is stuck.
Exactly. That's why using them together
Yeah.
is best for specific cases, not everyday content.
I think I'm starting to get it. What about developers?
Most developers will probably stick to the live workspace.
For site building and stuff.
Right. But here's something interesting.
What's that?
Workspaces themselves are what we call fieldable entities.
Fieldable entities.
You know how you can add custom fields to content types?
Like an image field or a text field?
You can do that with workspaces too.
Really?
It's like adding extra information to the workspace itself.
So I could add a field to track the review status of a workspace.
Exactly. Or a deadline or whatever you need.
And then use that information to do cool things.
Yeah, build custom logic, connect with other systems. The possibilities are huge.
So workspaces become more than just containers.
Exactly. They're dynamic and customizable.
That's awesome. Okay, so for a developer who's new to workspaces, where do they start?
Drupal.org has great documentation.
That's always a good place to start.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Make some test workspaces, play with the APIs, and see what you can do.
Hands-on learning is always the best.
For sure.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'm curious about something. We've talked about the practical stuff, but how do you see workspaces fitting into the bigger picture of Drupal?
I think workspaces are a big step forward for Drupal.
How so?
They make it more user-friendly.
For content editors.
Especially. It solves those old problems with content staging and previewing.
And gives people more control and flexibility.
Exactly. And as Drupal keeps evolving, we'll probably see even more features that build on workspaces.
Exciting times.
For sure.
Okay, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back for part 2.
Sounds good.
We'll look at some real-world examples of how people are using workspaces to solve their content challenges.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so we've got a good handle on what Drupal workspaces are, how they work, but let's get practical. You mentioned some real-world examples, how people are using workspaces. What are some of the coolest or most unexpected applications you've seen?
One area where workspaces really shine is in collaborative content creation. Like, imagine a team of writers, editors, subject matter experts all working together.
On a big project.
Exactly, like a series of blog posts or a white paper. It can be tough to keep everyone on the same page.
Literally. I've been there. Email chains, shared docs, version control nightmares.
Right. But with workspaces, each team member can have their own space to work.
Like separate writing desks, but in the digital world.
Yeah, exactly. They can draft, edit, refine their pieces, without stepping on each other's toes.
So it's like a content assembly line.
That's a great way to put it.
Each person focuses on their part without disrupting the whole process.
And when everyone's ready, you can merge those individual workspaces into a master workspace.
For final review and approval.
Exactly. Streamlines the whole collaboration process. No more messy email chains, no more shared documents.
Oh, that sounds lovely. No more digging through endless email threads to find the latest version. You mentioned translations earlier. I'm working on a multilingual site right now, and honestly, managing translations feels like herding cats. Can Workspaces help with that too?
Absolutely. Drupal has great support for multilingual content, but yeah, the workflow can be a headache.
Hmm.
With Workspaces, you can set up a separate workspace for each language
Okay.
and assign translators to specific workspaces.
So each translator is working in their own sandbox.
Yep. No risk of accidentally overwriting content in other languages.
That's a relief.
And with Workspaces Extra, moving translated content between workspaces becomes super easy.
So if I have a piece of content that's ready in English, I can just push it to the Spanish and French workspaces.
Exactly.
Okay, that actually sounds pretty smooth. I'm starting to see how workspaces can bring some order to the chaos of multilingual content.
It's all about having that separation and control. And speaking of control, people are using workspaces to engage external audiences too.
Really? Not just internal teams?
Yeah. Some organizations are using workspaces to create interactive experiences for their users.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Imagine you're gathering feedback on a new product.
Okay.
You could set up a workspace where users can submit ideas, vote on proposals, even collaborate on prototypes.
So it's like crowdsourcing innovation.
In a controlled environment, yeah.
That's really smart.
And because it's all happening within a workspace, it's separate from your live site.
So you can experiment without any risk to your public content.
Exactly.
That's a really clever way to use workspaces. Now, you mentioned something about workspaces and AI earlier. I'm really curious to hear more about that. Do you have any examples of how that might actually work?
It's still early days, but imagine this. You're writing content in a workspace, and an AI assistant is analyzing your writing.
In real time.
Yeah. It could suggest improvements to your grammar, style, even the tone of your writing.
So like having a superpowered editor looking over your shoulder,
Yeah.
but without the judgment.
Exactly. Or think about using AI to automatically generate different versions of content.
For different audiences.
Yeah, the AI could tailor the language, the tone, even the structure of your content.
To match the preferences of specific demographics.
Exactly. No more manually creating multiple versions of the same content.
That's next level personalization.
Right. And let's not forget about accessibility. AI could generate alt text for images, captions for videos, even transcripts for audio.
Your content would be more inclusive, reach a wider audience.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm geeking out here. This is the kind of stuff that makes you realize the potential of Drupal is really limitless.
I know, right? And as AI technology keeps advancing, I think we'll see even more groundbreaking applications in Drupal.
It's really exciting. We've talked a lot about how workspaces work today, but what about the future? What do you see evolving or improving as more people start using them?
One area that could use some work is the integration with workflows.
Yeah, we talked about that.
It would be great to have a smoother way to manage content that needs to go through both a workflow and a workspace.
Because right now it can be a bit clunky.
Yeah. Another area for improvement is how configuration changes are handled.
Okay.
Ideally, we'd have a way to stage config changes within a workspace without them affecting the live site immediately.
That would be a game changer.
It would give developers and site builders so much more flexibility and peace of mind.
Any other thoughts on the future of workspaces?
I think as more people use workspaces, we'll discover new use cases and identify areas where the functionality could be extended.
So it's a feature with a lot of potential.
Absolutely. And it's an exciting time to be working with workspaces because it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
Okay, so the future of workspaces is bright. We can expect to see some cool innovations in the coming years.
I think so, yeah.
Well, for our listeners who are eager to dive into the technical side of workspaces, we'll be exploring that in part 3 of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
We'll be looking under the hood to see how workspaces function at the database level. And we'll discuss some of the hooks and APIs that developers can use.
Awesome.
Okay, so we've really explored the what and the why of Drupal workspaces. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. The how.
Sounds like a plan.
It can be really helpful to understand the technical side, especially if you want to, get creative, customize things, or connect with other systems.
Definitely.
So let's pop open the hood. What's happening behind the scenes? Like at the database level, when we create and use workspaces.
It's actually a really clever system.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not too bad.
Okay, good.
When you turn on the Workspaces module, it adds a special field to your content.
Okay.
And this field, it's like a tag. It stores the ID of the workspace that the content belongs to.
So each piece of content has like a little note saying, hey, I'm part of Workspace X.
Yeah, exactly. And when you switch between workspaces, Drupal uses that ID to figure out which version to show you.
Makes sense. But how does Drupal keep track of which workspace is like active at any given moment.
That's where the state system comes in.
A state system.
Drupal stores the active workspace ID in its memory. Like, imagine a little sticky note.
Got it. So it's a global setting that says, hey, this is the content universe we're looking at right now.
Precisely. And this state information, it's also used to control what you can do in a workspace.
Makes sense. Like if you're in a staging workspace, you can't make those big configuration changes.
Right. We don't want to mess up the live site.
Exactly. Now, earlier we talked about sub-workspaces. Where do those fit in this whole database picture?
Imagine it like a family tree.
Okay.
Sub-workspaces, they're like children of a parent workspace. They inherit the parent's ID, but they also have their own unique identifier.
So it's like a nested structure, workspaces within workspaces.
Yeah, exactly. And when you merge a sub-workspace back into the parent, Drupal updates those content tags to match.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about developers. What tools do they have to work with workspaces programmatically?
Drupal has these things called hooks. They let developers tap into different events.
Events.
Yeah, like when a new workspace is created or published or merged.
So developers can basically add custom actions or modify the behavior of workspaces.
Exactly. And there are also APIs for creating and managing workspaces and their content using code.
Oh, that's powerful. So you could build integrations with other systems or even create totally new features on top of workspaces.
Absolutely. And as more developers start using workspaces, we'll probably see even more tools and resources popping up.
I bet. Now, you mentioned before that workspaces themselves are fieldable entities. I'm still not totally clear on what that means practically.
Remember how we can add those custom fields to content types?
Yeah, like image fields, text fields, that sort of thing.
Well, you can do the same with workspaces. It's like adding extra information directly to the workspace itself.
So I could add a field to track the review status of a workspace.
Yep. Or a deadline or anything you need.
And then use that information to like build custom logic or connect with other systems.
Precisely.
So workspaces become more than just containers.
Right. They become these dynamic, customizable objects.
That's really cool. Okay, so for a developer who's brand new to workspaces, where should they start?
Drupal.org is your best friend. The documentation there has a super comprehensive guide.
As always.
And then just experiment. Create some test workspaces, play with those APIs, and see how everything fits together.
Hands-on learning is always the best way.
For sure. And the Drupal community is amazing.
Yeah.
If you get stuck, there are tons of forums and online groups where you can ask questions and get help.
The Drupal community is the best. Well, I think it's clear that workspaces have the potential to really change the way we work with content in Drupal.
Absolutely. They bring so much control, flexibility, and collaboration.
And as the workspaces ecosystem keeps growing, I'm sure we'll see even more innovative solutions.
For sure. It's an exciting time to be working with Drupal.
It really is. To all our listeners, we encourage you to dive in and explore the power of Drupal workspaces. You might be surprised at what you can achieve, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Happy Drupaling, everyone!
All right. What did you think? Did the AI-generated thing work for you? Let us know. Anyway, to close off this podcast, I just wanted to remind you that this brief was a fully AI-generated summary, and we take no credit for the original content. If you want more AI-generated summaries like this, then let us know. Contact Salim Lakhani on Drupal Slack or LinkedIn. By the way, we're automating the entire process from start to finish, so these briefs can be generated hands-free and on schedule. You want something else covered? We're happy to do it for you. This brief was brought to you by Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is the new #1 platform to try, demo, and develop Drupal sites, and it is completely free to use. It is a community-supported nonprofit platform run by volunteers, just like yourself. Come join us.